Hello everyone, I'm Ryan and I'm a consultant here at Theorem, and today I'm going to be showing you Theorem's factory layout experience. I think what I really want to show you today is sort of the art of the possible, really, and how by using Theorem software and the new emerging XR technology you can start to build and experience factory planning, but in this 3D digital world. So I think the best place to start really is the end. So I'm going to start with a factory that I've built. You can see I've brought some data into this environment, and then we'll go on to looking at how we populate this data and how we get it in. So as we start to move down the factory, you'll see there's lots of different geometry visible, and this has all come from varying data types. So here we've got 2D data, 3D data, architectural data, scan data, and this is really one of the major benefits of Theorem software, is that we're able to consume all these different data types and present them to you in a way which you can see them and you can use them to make new decisions that you couldn't make before. So as an example of representing cognitive scale, we've got a factory press working area here. So you can move around this area, and just being immersed in the area gives you a sense of how the operator will use it. And you can review things like component placement, so in relation to the machinery itself, are these components in the correct location? And similarly, you can start to make decisions on the factory machinery itself. So is it going to clash with any of the steel work, any of the lighting? And considering the doors and the entrances to this layout, is it suitable, and how are we going to get it into this area? So there's a number of features and tools and functionality that we can use. I'm going to try and show you a few just to give you some ideas about the kinds of things you can do. So here we've got a robot working area. It looks like just 3D static geometry, but what it actually is motion data. So it's got all the motion data built in and recorded. So the machining paths of these robots working are recorded, and we've brought those through into this working area. So again, it's to help you make decisions on with this data, with this information, how can I work in this area? And similarly, we've got a mannequin placed here, so he's obviously going to have to work in close proximity to these robots. It's all about understanding the safety, and if there is a working area with robots and humans, is it okay? So equally this motion data could have extents of robots movement, just to understand is it a safe working environment. And similar to that, we can also have dimension information. So we've got a working area here. So this is a small production line, small roller, and is it a safe environment between these two areas? So what we can do is we can start to measure things. So there's a number of measuring tools there, you can see. So if I select point to point, I can say, okay, what is that clearance? So we've got a 900mm clearance there. If I start to walk down here, does it feel tight? And is it a safe working environment? And similarly, we've got these mannequins here. So again, they're all about making decisions on the working environment. So we've got this particular guy, and we can say, okay, if he reaches up there, can he reach? Looking at his sphere of the ergonomic data of the reach, can he reach far enough in here to complete the task? And in a similar manner, we've got a number of these, so we can say, okay, if we're working down in this environment, is that okay? Can they reach? And if we come back to the measure, we can say, okay, from this point, so that's a meter, is that a safe enough distance to be working in? And for repeat work, is it okay to keep crouching down there and doing that thing? So yeah, we've got, as I say, this is just some sample data we've got that I've put together just to give a sense of working. But we understand that factory layout, there's often a need to change factories and look at new stuff that's coming in. So what we can start to do is remove data. So if I can remove all these parts, and I can say, okay, if I come to add, we can add a component. So if I click to add a component, we've got a number of things. You've got library, loaded recent scenery, scan data, mannequins, and also all the geometry which you've brought in. So if I click on scenes, we've got another model here, so it's another robot cell, and that will bring the data live into this session. So this data has now come in, and we can now move it around this world. So we can start to rotate it, drop it to the floor, and we can start to use it instantly to make decisions. You know, we've got this data here, we've got the cage door there. You know, how can we coexist in this world? So we're gonna need to remove these racks, and then once we do that, we're in a safe situation. You know, we're now in here. The engineer can now enter OK and work in this environment. So as I say, you know, this is just to give you an idea of what it is that we're seeing. You can see that this is high quality geometry that we're bringing in, you know, fine meshes on the cage, and that's really the challenge, is bringing in this data and making it usable in this environment. And I think that brings us on quite nicely to the server itself. So if I bring up the server, we can start to talk about how that optimizes and prepares this data for you to use in this environment. So yeah, at the heart of the experience is really it's the Theorem Experience Server, and what it essentially is an open-ended server. You know, we can take any data as input formats, and we can link to any devices, so augmented reality, mixed reality, virtual reality, and behind all of that is the Theorem Experience Server, and it enables us to you know, manage the data. So where the data's coming from, you know, we can link it to existing workflows, or you know, or manually upload it, depends on your use case requirements. And we can optimize that data. So you know, one of the major things in this world is, you know, ensuring that the data that comes in is of a high quality, but also you know, is usable for your use case. So you know, if you need to review link points or various things in data sets, that you know, we ensure that we bring the right data through. So what I'm going to show you today, so yeah, the server itself has got a lot of menus. You know, there's a lot of management goes on with users, projects, data. So I'm just going to touch on a few things just to show you the kinds of ways you can use the server. So if I click on data, we can upload new data. So let's say we're going to upload some new files that we want to use in our application. So this is the upload file page. So you know, we've got some varying data types. So this is some data that you've just seen previously, but you know, these are some AGVs. We've got some FBX data which has got the motion in, but similarly this could be, you know, this could be Delmere, it could be CATIA. As I say, the data type's irrelevant, but the process will be the same. So if I minimize those, so yeah, we'll come to the upload file page, and I can bring up the data. So let's say we're going to pick up the JT data, so AGV, drag and drop it onto the interface, and it appears for uploading. In the same way, we can come to the motion data, so drag and drop, again, it's queuing to upload. So we can build that queue and we can upload it straightforward. But obviously one of the major benefits is being able to optimize this data. So you know, with huge data sets, especially in the factory layout, factory planning context, some optimization is required for good performance in devices. And you know, there's a number of devices out there at the moment, and depending on which devices you're going to use, will require different requirements for how the data is processed. But because the server allows that, then it's just a case of ensuring you know how you need your data prepared, and the server can manage it. So if I click on configuration, what we can see is there's a number of options here that you can control how the data is optimized and prepared. So if we quickly look at a few things, tessellation. So this is how the triangles are formed. So how the optimization is applied to the geometry that's created, and how the meshes are formed. So it's really how detailed you want to generate the data. So 0.7 millimeters, that's the caudal deviation. So how much, if I remove a piece of geometry, is it going to deviate from the original? So if we refine that to a lower number, then it will obviously improve the quality of the data, but it will increase the size. So it's all a managing act for, you know, optimum performance and optimum size for the devices that you're using. Similarly, assembly structure. So if you've got a huge data set that goes down many assembly structure levels, sometimes combining those up, so you know, combining many sub-assemblies into one thing enables performance to improve. Part culling. So again, if you've got things like rivets and bolts modeled that you don't necessarily want to bring through to your end use case, you can filter those out as part of the server. So you know, if it's of a certain size, remove it, or if it's a certain percentage of the total file size that we've got, remove it. And you've got, you know, there's many things to play with there, inclusion files, so you know, exclude everything other than the things listed here. Shrink wrapping, so again, if you're only interested in the outside skin of something, you're not interested in the internals, we can remove all that as part of the processing. And yeah, so it covers. I've covered a few things, but there's a lot to cover in here, and for the purposes of today's webinar, I won't cover it all. But if we click start, you'll see that the data begins to be uploaded to the server. So that's now pushing the data which we've selected up to the server. And if we come to the manage upload history page, we'll see that the AGV layout's already completed. So took a few seconds to complete, and the FBX data is now processing. So if I click refresh, we'll just wait for that to come in. And you'll see they've now both completed. So it's as simple as that. We've dragged and dropped some data on, it's processed it through the server, and that's now available for users to use. So if I click on models, you'll see the two data types we've just uploaded are now available on the server. So this model list is a full list of all of the data sets that are uploaded and available on the current server, and the associated things. So here you'll see that the animation data has automatically come through. So it's, yeah, as I say, it's a working list of all the data and how a user may use it. So managing the project that it's assigned to, the users that have access to it, it's all managed from within the server itself. So that's drag and drop directly via the server. What we can also do is upload directly from CAD systems. So if you use NX, V5, Creo, 3D Experience, we can upload geometry directly from the engineer's desk. So if we come to the file export menu, you'll see we've got Theorem export to XR. If I click that, that's now pushed that geometry directly to the server, and it will now be available in the same way. So if I come back to the models page, and you can see that data's now there and ready to use. So that's the sort of traditional CAD geometry. So what we can look at now is some of your other files. So traditionally, obviously factory layout, factory planning, a lot of it's done in 2D. But this will work in the same way. In the same way I've just dragged and dropped that data. We can read 2D data. We can read property information, attributes associated with it. And if you've started a layout in 2D, we can upload that. We can link 3D to the 2D representations. We can bring all that in. You can make those decisions in the way that I showed previously, and then you can push that back out. So you can export that back out into this 2D world to make decisions. So it works in the same way. What we've also got is some scan data. So again, this works in a similar way, but because scan data is traditionally very, very large, so this is point data. So what we've got is XYZ for the points and the RGB color. What you don't necessarily want to do is pollute your database with it. But what we can do via the server is link it externally. So if I come to the server, then go through data and non-processed data. So this is exactly what I've just said, really. It's linking data to your experience, so to the end user application, but it isn't held within the server itself. So again, the upload's done the same way. So data type scan data. So if you want to link documents and media, if you want to have stuff inside your application that isn't necessarily traditional data, then you can bring that in. So scan data, if I come back to here, I've got some scan data, drag that in and start upload. So we've done exactly the same thing there, but it's now available in the application. So the optimization and preparation of scan data is done app side, not server side. So that's then available, and you can use that from within the environment. So as I say, there's a lot to look at with the server. It manages a lot of things. It does a lot of things. So if we come to the dashboard, for example, you've got who's using what devices, what are the licenses, what's the data sets that have been uploaded over the last over the time that the server's been running. What were the file sizes. It does everything. It's an enterprise solution. It's designed to run with web services and link with all of your existing databases and services. So what we really need from you is understanding the use case and how this server can help you prepare and optimize data for use downstream in 3D. So the final thing I'll come back to is the application itself. So we saw it earlier, but I can run it from the start, so you'll see. So this is the desktop review experience. We've got virtual reality, we've got mixed reality, we've got augmented reality. But for the purposes of the webinar, it's just easier to show on the desktop. So we log in with the user defined on the server. So obviously we can define it on the server, or you can use your single sign-on. We can link with that with the server. And you'll see that once we've signed in, the user is presented with either launching a session collaboratively or as a single user. So obviously everything I've demonstrated so far has been single user, so me doing it on my own. But obviously this all could be ran collaboratively. So if your use case defines a need for multiple devices, multiple users, all collaborating at once on factory planning and factory layout, it is possible with our applications. So if I launch the single user session, you'll see it's downloading the model data. So that's bringing the data live from the server to the application itself. You'll see we've got common files available, so the common files are obviously visible to everyone, and then factory layout demo is the only thing that this user has access to. So it brings up all the data that's associated with this project. So you'll see that some of the data that we've just uploaded is available to use, and what we can do is obviously launch a new factory layout session. So if I say start from the fixed environment, so the staircases and walkways, I can launch a new environment, and you'll see that it's brought that now into this scene. So it's a scene of my factory, my layout, and you can see a bounding box visible currently. So you see if I move towards it, more data appears, and this again is all about data optimization and data preparation. So you'll see on the options here I've got transitioning on, and what that is it's limiting the data in the extreme views that's far away from you to optimize performance. So again, it's all about improving performance and ensuring that the experience for the user is optimum, it's prime. So if I turn that off, you'll see that it just shows me all of the geometry. And obviously it's similar to what I showed you previously, but I'll show you a few more bits and functionality. So if I come to add some more components, what I can do now is select something like a bin. So let's say I bring this bin in. So what I can do is snap that to the floor. I can turn that round. And let's bring another one in. Snap that to the floor. So obviously in this environment, we need tools that'll help us align and help us put things in the right places. So we can use alignment. So let's say I want this to be parallel with this. I can say, okay, select this face, select a secondary face, and confirm that. So what that's now done is ensured that those two components are aligned and in place. Also, again, another nice feature is grouping. So I can now say, okay, let's group these two things together, and now when I move them, they are one thing. So we've brought them together and we can use them as one, and we can copy and paste that. So if I copy and paste those components, I can now bring those in, duplicates of these components. It's all about improving the user experience and helping them place data and bring data into this in the best way. And in a similar way, obviously factory planning, factory layout, they're often large areas, often large expanses. So you'll see in the top left what we have there is what we call a mini map, and it's just a view of where you are in the current environment. So if I zoom in, you can see the 4 things that I've just placed, and this is me. And there's various features again with this. So if I show, obviously we've got me shown, other users. So if you are using it collaboratively, you can view that. And pins and waypoints are all about how you move around this environment. So for example, if I can set waypoints at the bottom of staircases or in certain areas. So if you want people to review designs in a certain place, you can manage that and place that in this location. So as an overview to factory planning and factory layout, this is really everything I wanted to show. Hopefully it's been informative to you and it is of interest. I think what we really need to do now is work collaboratively with you. So understanding people's use cases and requirements, and looking at how our server and how our applications can help you resolve real business needs. So that's what I'd suggest that we look at now and going forward.